And now for something completely different.
Halo has been a series that holds a lot of passion in my heart. I remember being a little boy playing my first game of custom games, not realizing I was in the middle of the minefield on Sandtrap. Oh, how naive I was. A fool. I didn't realize that was the beginning of the end. The end was crippling debt as I began buying every Halo product I could get my hands on. One of these days, I will have the Master Chief head. One of these days. But in all seriousness, I think the thing I was most invested in was the story, and in turn the expanded story, the lore. That was the shit I was obsessed with. I would go to my school's library picking out every new Halo book I could find. I currently own the physical, digital, and majority of the audiobooks for every Halo book, and I am what you would say a Halo fan. So when a new Halo book comes out, you know I'm getting that shit day one, and Halo Outcast is no exception. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy me ramble on about how much I love this book. So the story takes place a few days after Doizak is destroyed in Halo Infinite, and if you think that's a spoiler, fuck you, cause it tells you in the acknowledgement of the book. Also, who reads a book and doesn't play the games? This book goes by really fast. I'm not sure if it was just the fact I was so hyped up to read this book, but I finished it in like a week. And as much as I love reading, I usually don't finish books that fast. It usually takes me about 3 weeks to a month to read a book about the same length as Halo Outcast. There was just so much happening that I just couldn't put my phone down. And yes, I was reading the digital copy and listening to the audiobook. Sue me. I was in Disney World. And in all seriousness, it did help with the lines feel a lot shorter, and I suppose I'll start talking about the story now. Like I said, it takes place a few days after Doizak is game ended by Cortana. There's a lot of commotion going on St. Helios because of a separate situation, and there's a lot of rumors about a Guardian killer, and you know who is interested in these rumors? Your boy Keith David himself, the Arbiter.
Welcome to hell, motherfucker!
He's told by this Peter Baelish looking fuck named Cray Iomu, which, side tangent, I just gotta praise Troy Denning for coming up with some of the coolest elite names known to man. Like, I would never think of naming elite Cray Iomu. Like, fuck me, isn't that the coolest? And then he starts talking about his employer, looking for a human who was helping them find the Guardian Killer. Also, the Guardian Killer is on the planet Netherop, and Arbiter is like, shit man, I guess I gotta go find out because I don't trust you or your employer. And Iomu is just like, good, I wouldn't trust me either. Like, pop off queen, you didn't have to slay that hard. But in all actuality, here is a recreation of the scene and how it went.
You may enter.
Your ancestors' legacy will be difficult to match. I see now why you take so many ill-advised risks to enhance your own. But there is always more to an Arbiter's legacy than an enthralling saga. It is an Arbiter's duty to uphold public honor of the Sangheli, to foster honesty and enforce the laws of our ancestors.
Fostering honesty. I always thought that's what the Oath Wardens were for.
By the time we are contracted, it is more a matter of imposing it.
No doubt. But why me? Surely you do not believe I have any interest in sharing your fee.
What a thought. But nothing so creative. I come at a courtesy. This particular contract may be of concern to you, so it seemed wise to give you an opportunity to secure your interest before I proceed.
Then perhaps you should explain what interest I must secure. You informed Quad Vadami this concerned the trouble in the valley.
I did. It was the only way to persuade him to permit me.
Does this not concern the trouble in the valley? Because I have no interest in speaking to you about anything else.
If I explain myself, it does not mean I am the one who caused.
I love the tyrant less than I do liars. Know that if I punish you, it will be by my hand. I will not turn you over to her.
Then I have nothing to fear. My client was merely leading by your example. My client financed an expedition to Umba for a human female, a xenoarchaeologist by the name of Kili Iuska.
Naba, world of death. I have not heard of such a planet, and why should I care for your client and this human?
It is your concern if this xenoarchaeologist is now in the valley, and if my client has also been the victim of human betrayal.
Also? Surely you mean to rouse suspicion upon the humans I allow in Vadam Valley. Those who live here are as honorable as I am.
I did not say my target lived here, only that she is here now. I know you want to protect the reputation of your humans in residence by helping to hold her accountable.
What I want is to know why your target's arrival has drawn so many armigers into the streets, and how it has resulted in the destruction of an entire tenement island.
That was unavoidable. She attempted to hide in the Creshhorns, and my floating eyes alarmed the incubating females. A band of angry males fired on the eyes, and I lost track of the target in the confusion. By the time the first armiger arrived, it was too late to recall them. I abandoned the entire fight.
Then the destruction of the tenement islands was your doing?
I never loosed a bolt. I left when the first armiger arrived. Whatever happened next, that was between the residents and the armigers.
A clever excuse.
I am still waiting to learn what this human is doing here on Sanghelios, and why you are hunting her.
I have already told you. I am hunting her because she broke her word.
If you want my help, you will have to be more forthcoming. And if you expect to leave Vadam Keep alive, you will waste no more of my time.
I will reveal as much as I am permitted to. If that is a waste of your time, you are welcome to try. But I will be leaving Vadam Keep in a manner of my own choosing. The human special area of study is protogenic civilizations.
Meaning?
Before the Forerunners. The xenoarchaeologist has been using the Muanesi military survey of uninhabited planets to identify targets of interest.
She's Oni then?
When there still was an Oni, but no longer. If she were an Oni operative, she would not need my client to finance her expedition to Umba.
Perhaps. Tell me more about this Naba.
It is a marginally survivable world in the out sectors. It is called Netherop by the humans. It drew the xenoarchaeologist interest because there was a small surface battle early in the War of Annihilation, and the UNSC's after-action report referred to an ancient roadway, a buried city, and sophisticated vehicles that utilized legs instead of wheels. It seemed like a good candidate for exploration until her funding was cut short due to the tyrant.
And so your client stepped in.
He has a deep interest in xenoarchaeology. He knows this human's work, and he believes she will recast the field's understanding of protogenic civilizations. All he wants is to play a small part in her success.
I highly doubt that is all he wishes. After all, he sent an Oath Warden to force a research grant on an explorer.
She has already taken my client's funds. It is her part of the agreement I am here to enforce. She is to give my client first choice of any artifact she recovers.
After she reaches Naba, which she has not done,
Precisely.
then you are premature. She cannot give your client what she has not yet recovered.
True. Which is why there are allowances for clear intent, and look to our surprise when she did not rendezvous with my client and came here instead, to Vadam.
And where was she meant to be?
If I were to tell you that, you would know who my client is, which I am not free to reveal.
Then I see nothing left to discuss. Usei, Kola, see the Oath Warden now, please.
Perhaps if I were to mention who she has come here to see.
Olympia Vale. Spartan Olympia Vale. Enough of this, Oath Warden. You continue to placate me with nonsense, and I have requested for your departure many times in this conversation, and many times you have been bothersome to no end. Leave at your own will. Or don't leave at all.
But, Arbiter, I mean no offense in this conversation. After all, I have not finished my report of Uba, which you specifically asked me for, after all.
Then explain yourself. Oath Warden.
The xenoarchaeologist Kili Iuska discovered an ancient account suggesting the Nba civilization had been attacked by a Forerunner Guardian.
And now that she knows why the civilization vanished, she no longer wishes to journey to Naba.
Not at all. The Nba civilization survived, at least for a time. It was the Guardian that perished.
You don't mean... This can't be.
I am beginning to see your point, Oath Warden. Please, sit. We need to make plans.
Meanwhile, in the Batcave, Olympia Vale is on St. Helios, and she receives a love letter. And no, it's not from the Arbiter, as much as I wanted it to be. God damn it. One of her old friends, Kili Iuska, who is the human that was employed by the guy that Krayaomu works for, And she shows up to Vale and she's like, listen, Vale, there's a Guardian Killer out there and I got by the Mafia. They're after me. Please, Troy Denning, do not kill me. I'm just trying to make people laugh. Olympia Vale agrees, and the two of them set off to find some people to help them traverse the dangerous terrain of Netherop. To speed things along, all the major players are forming their own expeditions to go to Netherop for one goal: to find the Guardian Killer. See, at this point, I need to bring up the elephant in the room also. Halo Outcast is not a standalone book. I mean, it is semi-standalone. You could read it, and as long as you've played the Halo games involving Vale and the Arbiter, and played Halo Infinite, you'd be perfectly fine. But if you really want to get the deep subplots of the story, I recommend reading Halo Silent Storm and Halo Oblivion. This book connects with both of those books, more so with Oblivion, because Oblivion takes place directly on Netherop, but Silent Storm introduces the main antagonist of Oblivion and this book, and he's also one of my favorite characters, so I just want to recommend it. His name is Nizat Cavarosi, and for time's sake, just to give a brief explanation, Nizat is the main antagonist of the story. He was a Covenant fleet master, and his fleet was defeated by the Master Chief in Silent Storm. After failing, the prophets deemed him to be marked for death, and as a last-ditch effort, he planted a tracking beacon on a shield generator so he could take down Oni, because he thought humanity wasn't the real threat, it was Oni, which is kind of based if you think about it, because Nizat's like, no, fuck you, humans. Your secret boogeyman organization is truly the real threat to the Covenant, because he was totally right. Oni was the reason who put the green man in the suit, and also made the holographic naked woman, and then the Covenant died later on. Anyway, back on track, Nizat Cavarosi was exiled by the Covenant and was marooned with a few others on Netherop. They are upset, but Nizat sees this as a challenge from the gods, a test of fate. He is clinically insane. And when Nizat was stuck on the planet, a group of UNSC personnel were left behind too. And for the last 29 years, these two groups of Covenant and UNSC continue to fight each other with what little equipment they had left. But also during this 29-year time frame, Nizat and his Covenant forces found an underground settlement that houses ancient technology that doesn't seem quite Forerunner. It seems something else, something older. The settlement is almost alive, feeding them, giving them nourishment, protecting them, and giving them access to the Guardian Killer. The Covenant remnants think it's Forerunner, but there are some theories on what it truly belongs to. But I'm not going to talk about that here just yet. I have to pad for runtime. Now, the Arbiter and Vale show up on the planet and they find themselves brought back to the Human Covenant War. Humans hate elites, elites craving the Great Journey. It's like a reunion album, but there's a lot more people dying and want to kill each other. It's actually really fun to see the Arbiter interact with Covenant members years after the Covenant have disbanded. Like, these guys are baffled at the idea that the Arbiter, the most disgraced title for a Sangheili to have, is leading the Sangheili, allying with the humans, and talking shit about the prophets. Like, nothing is going to sway these dudes, and Thel's presence is not helping at all. Like, there's even a Sangheili who was working with Nizat and switched sides, not because he believed the Arbiter, but because he didn't want to die on Netherop. He also doesn't like Nizat, but that's besides the point. The point is that the Arbiter and Vale gotta deal with these crazy faith-driven elites, and the humans, surprisingly, for once in all of human history, are actually the more reasonable people to communicate with, surprisingly. I think that was a close third favorite moment for me, my second favorite being the scene that you guys watched with Kreiomu and the Arbiter, but we'll get to my favorite moment later on. But yeah, this is the moment here, one of my personal favorite moments. I don't want to do a beat by beat summary of the story, but some more stuff happens. Vale and her group of humans and the Arbiter and his group decide that whichever group gets to the Guardian Killer first will be able to take it for themselves. Yep, you guessed it, the fate of everything. The person who will stop Cortana's rule and destroy her guardians, also in turn becoming the new top dog of the galaxy, will be decided by a game of find finders keepers. There's a lot more nuance to it, but this is a lot funnier to think about it this way. I won't tell you who won because you can read the book and find out yourself, but I will say the ending was not what I was expecting. It was interesting to see that there really wasn't a final confrontation. I mean, we got a few battles and skirmishes between the humans and the Covenant and the swords of St. Helios and the Covenant, but we don't get a big epic battle. Even when the heroes are making their way off Netherop, there's urgency, but for the most part, there's not a big war or battle. It's just, alright, let's pack up because Cortana is gonna be here any second now. There's a lot more I want to talk about in this review, but I'm already all over the place and I don't know what to say at this point because anything else that I say would be major spoilers. All in all, I highly recommend picking up this book and reading it for yourself. It has a lot of information about Sankheli culture. We see the Arbiter and Vale again, we meet a bunch of new characters, and we get whispers from old species. We also see spoilers, so if you want to skip this part, here's the timestamp. But we also see the ending of Nizet Cavarosi and his second-in-command, Tam Lukosi, two of my favorite elites in the Halo franchise, period. In the span of 3 books, we see what makes them unique, we see what makes them devoted, and in the end, we see what makes them more than friends, but brothers. This is a spoiler, but I would like to share a recreation of the death of Tam Lukosi in Nizet Cavarosi.
Worldmaster, we failed, and the gods, they punish us. No, you have been nothing but faithful and loyal, Worldmaster. The gods would never repay such devotion with cruelty. I'll return soon, as quickly as possible. Perhaps the gods were punishing us, or abandoned us, or they were never there in the first place. Was it all a lie? Was the Arbiter right? The Worldmaster did not deserve this. Cavarosi has been nothing but faithful, honored the gods, served the Covenant, suffered for it, punished for it. Why? Why must you condemn a good subject to such a fate? And as for my fate, my purpose, what must I do? So full of hate were our eyes that none of us could see. Our war would yield countless dead, but never victory. So let us cast arms aside and like discard our wrath. Thou, in faith, will keep us safe while we find the path. Everything will be fine. The gods are still with us. You will see.
But in all seriousness, -5 out of 10, Arbiter and Vale didn't fuck at the end of the book. Fuck you, Troy Denning.